Today's a great day to talk about design systems. But before I get started talking about design systems, I want to share with you my two favorite colors, teal and purple. Yeah. Now, in my opinion, they're very calm, comforting colors, but you can use them to express passion and playfulness. I want you to think about your favorite colors, or maybe your favorite color when you were a kid. You may have had some opinions about why this color was more appealing than others, or why others weren't as appealing as it was. Now, I was having the same conversation recently with one of my colleagues, Sean Powell. He said when he was a kid, he would always answer that his favorite color was red. But red wasn't really his favorite color. He just felt obligated to give that as an answer. You see, for Sean, his opinion about a color depended on what the color was being used for. So if you asked him his favorite color of the ocean, he would say deep blue, or his favorite color of grass, and he would say bright green. And when it comes to design systems, we can have a lot of different opinions on a lot of different things. And everybody's got an opinion, and they're all a little bit different. So if everybody has an opinion, what value do they have in design systems? Just like Sean's favorite color, they usually depend on context, like what platform you're building for, your products, or maybe even your role in the product lifecycle. My name is Nate Baldwin, and I've been working in design systems for over a decade. And I am no stranger to sharing my own opinions, usually in the form of articles, tweets, or online tools. I love to share my opinions on things like color, design tokens, and spacing. Recently, I had the honor of working alongside Sean on Intuit's core design systems team. And although Sean is not on stage with me today, he worked very closely with me to create the content of this talk. So together, we want to share with you the value of opinions in design systems and how they impacted our work at Intuit. So Intuit is a company that owns several well-known brands, such as QuickBooks, TurboTax, Credit Karma, and MailChimp. At its core is Intuit's design system. It serves as a central resource for design and development across all of these products. Something unique about Intuit is that several of the product teams have their own fully staffed design systems. These teams would extend Intuit's design system, or IDS, and build their own product-specific design system off of it. Now, a couple of years ago, IDS was in a tough situation. We didn't have a very close relationship with our customers when it came to setting the goals or direction of our design system. Many of our resources didn't have enforceable standards or governance, and we were lacking some strategy in some key areas. As Sean put it, we didn't have opinions on some pretty important decisions on what a design system is. We were so loosey-goosey, it's hard to say if we had a design system before. At that point in time, IDS was more like a collection of unopinionated resources. Resources that became incompatible across product teams. It was harder for them to share design and code. Product teams were starting to drift further from a unified system. If they couldn't do what they needed to with IDS resources, they would just go off and build their own. And the more our internal customers weren't using our design system, the more of a challenge it was for us to accomplish our goals and meet their needs. But there was a silver lining in all of this. At this particular moment in time, because since more people were going off and building their own things, that meant more and more people were facing design systems problems. Problems that they weren't sure how to solve, problems that they needed help with. There was also growing frustration with the unopinionated nature of the team. Many of our internal customers were saying they wanted us to tell them no from time to time. They were eager for clarity, leadership, and direction, and they all felt like IDS as a central team was the appropriate team to be providing that for them. So we jumped on the opportunity and we really listened to our customers to figure out what some of their pain points and frustrations were. We wanted to identify things that were blocking them from accomplishing their goals, but we also wanted to learn about opportunities to improve their velocity across both design and development. Through these discussions, two overlapping topics emerged: design tokens and theming. These two topics affect the entire infrastructure of a design system. Design tokens affect the way that you design and build products, and theming affects the way that products are able to express their brand across the entire company. Because of the impact of these two topics, we recognized that we needed to include our customers in these discussions. We needed perspectives from both design and development across all of our product teams to make sure that we could come up with a solution that was appropriate and that could scale. So we continued talking to our customers, and a new challenge emerged. Like I said, everybody's got an opinion. But some people are really quiet about their opinions, and others are very loud and outspoken. We needed to hear everybody's opinions, so we needed to create an environment of open collaboration. But on top of that, an idea that may work for one team may not for another. So we needed to focus this work on achieving outcomes. We wanted to avoid circular discussion or leaving topics unresolved. And the way that we went about this was by creating structured workshops, focusing on achieving outcomes. We also made a concerted effort to place a very high value on every participant's opinion. No opinion was ignored, and no opinion was diminished. We time-boxed discussions and exercises to make sure that the louder voices did not dominate the discussion, and we would regularly ask our quieter participants for their opinion at every step of the way. We made sure that everyone's opinion, no matter how big or how small, was treated as equally important. Now, the topics that we were looking to solve are very big, complex challenges. So in order for us to achieve a desired outcome, we had to break these down into much smaller workshops. Each workshop could focus on a specific topic. Those workshops were then broken down even further into smaller exercises where our participants could focus on solving granular challenges one step at a time. After completing each of these exercises, we could then evaluate all of these solutions together and combine them into a solution for the main topic of the workshop. By repeating this process over and over, we could then combine all of the final solutions together to form our desired outcome. This approach of really breaking down the problem into granular steps helped our participants to stay on track. It also helped them to contribute to a much larger solution, one piece at a time. We weren't asking them to boil the ocean. And at the end, we were confident that we had diverse, granular opinions about every detail of the solutions that we created. The takeaway from this approach was that valuable opinions are not formed in isolation. We could have very easily come up with our own opinions about tokens and theming and just pushed them off to our customers, but that would have been short-sighted. Nobody knows our products like the people working on them. Nobody knows the challenges, restrictions, or capabilities like the people who are building them, and nobody knows the ways in which a product may want to express their brand like the people designing them. So for our opinions to have any value, they had to be formed in collaboration. So one of the first topics that we dove into was theming. Now, the idea of theming at Intuit was a vague idea at best. IDS had an 80-20 rule defined, where 20% of a product could be uniquely styled, whereas the remaining 80% was supposed to be consistent across the board. Except most of the product teams either didn't know about this rule, or they completely disagreed with it. Another major problem with an 80-20 rule is it's too ambiguous. There was little to no actionability, and we couldn't really measure or enforce it. Right? What is 20% of a product look like? And are we talking about every design element? Border radius, typography, color? How do we measure the 20% of expression? Are we looking at just the unique instances of a value across a screen, or across a workflow, or across the entire product? Or maybe it's subjective, where we just look at a screen and say, that feels like 20%, right? There's not much actionability here. We really needed a framework for theming that was actionable and enforceable. So during our workshops, we sat down with all of our teams and we analyzed key aspects of our products together. We were really looking to define what are those areas that we can align on. What is that 80% that we are all going to be consistent on? But also, what are those opportunities for product expression? What is the 20% that we want to leave open so products can have some freedom of expression? However, despite our best efforts, we couldn't pull it across the finish line. Every time we started to find alignment, some team would change their minds. And every time they changed their mind, it came with some level of fear. They were afraid that constraints would somehow prohibit designers from being able to do their jobs. After a lot of back and forth on this, we realized that we were at an impasse. We couldn't define the specifics of a theming framework with continually shifting opinions. And we couldn't provide confidence to our design participants in what that would actually look like, how those constraints might affect their products, or how expressive they could be. There was no way for us to demonstrate throughout these workshops how that might look. So it started to become clear to us that we weren't going to achieve our desired outcome of a fully fleshed out theming framework because we were going about it in the wrong way. See, in order for designers to properly evaluate and contribute to a theming framework, we were going to have to build it first and then iterate and define the constraints later. Only then would designers be able to see and interact with the realities of a constraint-based system. Real-time feedback from a theming editor would help them to align more quickly and with confidence. But shifting this direction meant taking a gamble. We were effectively asking leadership and our customers to take a leap of faith in our team. We needed them to be confident. We needed confidence that our team had their best interest in mind and that adopting a system and defining it later was actually going to be the right approach. To rally everyone around shifting that direction, we had to step way back. See, this entire time, we had been focusing on the details of the theming framework. What attributes can be themed? What components can be themed? Or in what ways can the components be themed? And this was all far too granular. We needed to be focusing on where we were going, the future that we were trying to move towards. Even then, it was still quite vague. So we took the time to really sit down and create a vision for what theming could be at Intuit. Within this vision, we created a sizzle reel, you're welcome, Dan, to help excite designers and give them confidence in what a constraint-based design system could be, how theming could feel, how theming could affect our products. Sharing this vision with our team gave us exactly what we needed. We got confidence in the designers. It created excitement across leadership. And it gave us momentum that we were then able to use to transform our token management system into a fully interactive theme editing experience. And the takeaway from that work was that our opinions should be rooted in a vision. A vision would help us to strategize and to figure out the details as we go. A shared vision helps to provide confidence in our customers and in leadership that we were able to meet their expectations. But it would also provide a way to rally people together around finding common ground. So the overlapping topic that we had yet to solve was tokens. Tokens are absolutely necessary in order to technically support theming. And IDS had a token system already, but it had a lot of problems. We didn't have a defined structure for tokens. So there was confusion and inconsistency around how they should be structured. We also didn't have a standard naming convention. So customers could create their own token, name it however they want, and push it out into the wild. And that resulted in hundreds of inconsistently named tokens. Our previous approach relied heavily on component-specific tokens, which for our team ended up being 1,347 unique component tokens. But when you look at the 13 themes that we were supporting, each of which had light and dark mode, that came more to 35,022 tokens. That token set was unusable. It was very difficult for our customers to understand, and it was difficult for us to understand. It also was difficult to maintain. Plus, on top of that, plenty of our customers were importing those tokens differently into their projects. Several teams would import all 35,000 tokens just to reference a single value. After talking some more with our customers, it was very clear we needed to stop using component tokens. Instead, we needed to find something that was flexible, scalable, and understandable. And for our team, that meant creating a robust set of semantic tokens. We needed this token set to be reusable across the widest range of use cases possible. That way, we could keep the number of tokens we supported to a minimum. But we also needed these tokens to be named with enough specificity to be useful and understandable. We needed designers and developers to be able to understand when, why, where, and how to use them. So over the next several months, we had a workshop series to create a full new set of semantic tokens. And this is an example of one of these workshops, or what the outcome would look like. Each of these followed the same basic structure. We started with an area where we set the expectations for the workshop. What are the desired outcomes? What are the key questions we have to answer? Things like that. Next to that was a section where we provided additional context for our participants. So any prior art, designs, documentation, or tokens. This way, everybody who was participating could ground themselves and understand where we were coming from. Next to that, we had some links to inspiration. So participants could go off and see how other design systems are solving similar problems. And beside that was the area where we held all of the exercises throughout the workshop series. Now, when we dive into each of these exercises, they're also broken down into repeated parts. So each of these began with an area where we would outline the process. What are the steps that we're going to take, how much time we're going to spend on each, and what the desired outcomes are. And then we had some examples. There were some participants that were unfamiliar with FigJam or writing on sticky notes, dot voting, things like that. So we wanted to give them an example of what kinds of artifacts you might create during this process. And then next to that, we had sections for actually doing the work for each token type. Now, this example was for creating all of our typography tokens. Exercise 1 was for primitive tokens, but we did the exact same thing with all of our semantics as well. And since we had multiple token types, like font size, font weight, etc., we had to repeat the exercise for each of the different token types. And if we look down to ground level for one of these particular exercises, we started by defining what we want to call the tokens. Like, is it a font family? Is it a font name? And then we went through a process of identifying a classification system, how we wanted to name the different options. And the outputs from each of these exercises was a very simple list. The token names and their values that we wanted to have. As we finished each exercise, we could then cross-reference the outputs from prior exercises, looking for opportunities to align, comparing and contrasting. And throughout the entire set of workshop series, we were able to really surface that information up one more level and create a formalized token taxonomy system, which was a way of us consistently classifying and naming tokens. And as a result, we were able to make sure that all current and future IDS tokens are consistently named. We were able to see the outcome of this new system relatively quickly firsthand. Earlier this year, TurboTax released a full visual refresh of their product. If you used TurboTax last year, it might have looked something like this behind me. And this year, more like this. It's subtle, but it is effective. This visual refresh was done in a matter of weeks rather than months. And a good portion of it was done by theming IDS semantic tokens. From all of this work, we learned that valuable opinions cannot be formed in isolation. For our opinions to have any value, they need to be formed in collaboration. We also learned the importance of rooting those opinions in a vision. A shared vision on key aspects of a design system is extremely important for alignment and making sure that everybody's working towards the same outcome. But lastly, we also learned the importance of not being stubborn. Throughout the whole process, our opinions had to continue to shift and change, and they will continue to have to shift and change as the customer's needs evolve, as the landscape evolves, and as we move forward to the future. So, what is the value of opinions in design systems? Well, opinions are a lot more than just what color is your favorite. Opinions, or the lack thereof, will result in something being built into the very fabric of every system you create. They can affect the success or the failure of your design system. And with the more platforms you support, the more products you support, the scale of that success or failure only grows. Collaborative, well-informed opinions are an absolute necessity for a design system's long-term success. So as you go back to work next week, Sean and I both want to encourage you to find your shared vision. Break silos, get diverse perspectives. Value other people's opinions, especially if you disagree. Use those opinions to help inform your own opinion. Earlier, I mentioned that we created a little sizzle reel to excite our customers about our vision for theming it into it. I want to share that video with you today. If you have photosensitivities, please be mindful. But I want to share it with you today in hopes that it will inspire you to find your shared vision and to form strong collaborative opinions about your design system as well. Thank you. And I want to give a special thanks real quick to all the contributors you see here on the screen and so many more. And thank you so much for listening.